ai ngā Wairarapa o te karu o te ika Māui, ki te tapere nui o whātonga. Ko kutapu ai ki rangi whakaomauma, ko ngā pai maunga o tararua ko tōku korowai, nau mai hara mai ki Kahurangi. Tēnā koutou katoa, ko te arawa te waka, i hoea mai e tama te kapua me tōku iwi, me oku hapu, me oku whānau mai Hawaii, rei ātea ki Tahiti, whānui. Ka tai mai make tū, ki Tongariro, ko Tūhourangi, ko Ngāti Tūwhare Toa, ko Ngāti Te Roro Te Rangi, ko Ngāti Whāwa Ngāti Tahu, ngā iwi. Kārere ki te tairawhiti, ki Horouta, ki Nuku Tere Waka, ko Ngāti Porou, ko Ngāti Ira ngā iwi. Ka heke, ka rere anō, ki tōku tūranga waiwai, ki te whiti o Wairarapa. Ki tā ki timu waka, ko Ngāti Kahungunu ki Wairarapa te iwi. I kurahau pō waka, ko rangitāne te iwi. Ko reiri, ko rūtene, ngā ingoa whānau, ko Te Ataahia Eraina Hurihanganui a hau, mōrena atamaria tātou e te whānau, kia ora. Hello everyone, lovely to be back in here again. I'm officially starting today, but I do want to disclaim here that I haven't had my second trial, so I'm going to treat this as a trial for Kahurangi, our new Te Reo Māori, Te Ao Māori program here on Arrow FM. So firstly, I'd like to thank Michael and the team here at Arrow FM Wairarapa Access Radio for the opportunity for rangitane and Ngāti Kahungunu to have their voices, their stories and their place here on this whenua recognised through this lovely program of ours. I am Te Ataahia Eraina Hurihanganui. I've just given you a short mihi of mine to set the scene, and as we develop the program in the coming weeks, you will understand very quickly what our themes and topics are going to be going forward from here on out. I'm also really happy, if you like, really content that we've decided to start now. As some of you may know, we have just had the rising of our new moon, Whiro. Now, Whiro, our new moon this time round, has been quite significant because with Whiro's rising, we had the rising of our twin stars, Pipiri. Pipiri, of course, is our first lunar month in our Māori lunar calendar, signifying the very beginning of a new year. So a great time for new beginnings, new opportunities, of course, and a fresh perspective for our storytelling. And of course, this is an opportunity for this to become a hub going forward for our communities here in Wairarapa Whānui. So I'd just like to acknowledge new beginnings with a karakia. For those of you who know me through a professional lens, you will know that I am an educator. I am a te reo teacher and language teacher of European languages, Italian and Spanish, an English language teacher as well. But more than that, I am passionate about my beautiful, unique culture of Te Ao Māori, and I like to think of myself as a sharer of knowledge and a connector of people and stories. So a lot of that history and that context of who I am and how I like to really talk about everything that is incredible about Te Ao Māori is part of my heritage of being here in Wairarapa and being from here, Te Whiti. So the karakia I'm going to open with is one that some of my learners and students around Wairarapa and Aotearoa know or have heard at least. I have presented it in a number of my workshops and presentations up and down the motu. And this one comes from my tūranga waiwai, Te Whiti, which is very close to the studio that I am sitting in right now. A lot of people will know it as the Gladstone region or the wine region of Masterton. And this one here is particular to a small pā that once thrived with my whānau and a small community. that part is still there. It doesn't look the way it once did, but it is very special to me and my whānau. Karakia have many purposes and intentions, and I do want to just highlight the different connotations to karakia and the different translations. Ko te karakia te tehi kawa me ki, mai rā no, mo te hononga o te tehi ki te tehi, mo te hononga o tātou, ngai tāngata, ki tau wairua, ki tau tūroa hoki, he momo tohu tohu, he momo kōrero a hohonu, he momo ohorere, whakaohorere hoki, o te wairua o te ngākau. So karakia has many purposes, like I've said. Sometimes it's about connecting one to another. Sometimes it's about connecting us to the wider world, the natural environment, and of course to our spiritual world and our connections to our atua. A deeper purpose, a deeper sense of belonging. So this karakia does all of that, but it's particular to the beginning of the day and the beginning of something new. Me karakia tātou. Wairarā, wairarā, wairarā te rangi runga nei, wairarā te papa iraro nei, wairarā te kāhui ariki, te kāhui tipua, te kāhui tauira, tūku ana, tūku ana, tūku ana te reo kia rere, tūku ana te kupu kia taka, tūku ana te take kia mau, ueha, 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 ueha nuku, ueha rangi. Ueha tāne nui ārangi, tāne whakapiripiri, nāna i toko te rangi ki runga nei, kia tū hāhā. Kia tū ki ana rangi, tū ki ana nuku. Ka tangi te hau, ka mātao, ka ao, ka awatea, he ao mārama, tihei, mauri ora. So this tau parapara and now karakia was written by Raitiana Tamatea o konei, tēnā koe. E te tūpuna. No reira mo tēnei nā kaupapa ko te kahurangi. I ta paina te ingoa e au i te rānei mō ōku hononga ki ngā tika hungunu ki Wairarapa kia rangi tāne hoki. No reira ko te kahu mai a kahu ngunu, ko te rangi mai a rangi tāne. Ko tōku tino wawata kia tuku atu i ngā karere o tēnei hāpori o tēnei rohe me ki, kia Aotearoa whānui. Engari he wāhi tēnei mō tātou ngai Māori ki te whakahono ki ngā iwi kē, ki ngā iwi Pākehā, ki ngā iwi tauiwi. No reira, he reo rua tēnei nā te kahurangi. Me te whakaaro, ko te kahurangi te tehi kuru pounamu. Te tehi taonga te kahurangi. No reira, he wawata no tōku kia tai mai ngā kahurangi o Wairarapa o ngā tika hungunu ki Wairarapa rangi tāne hoki ki roto nei ki te rūma kia kōrero tahi tātou. Me te tino whakahono i a rātou ngā kahurangi o konei ki te hāpori whānau ki o tātou whānau. So kahurangi has a number of meanings. I want to acknowledge Te Kura Kaupapa Māori o Wairarapa. They do have a hall named Kahurangi, and it's after Kahu from Kahungunu and Rangirangi Tāne, the tūmana whenua of our region here. Now, Kahurangi in Te Reo Māori, in our Māori language, also means treasure, taonga, something precious and something prized. So I have two main intentions for having this program here. One, of course, is to really set our voices and stories loose and free from this district so that they can be shared all over Aotearoa to not just other Māori but to other Pākehā and tauiwi groups and communities in New Zealand forevermore. The other intention is to get our kahurangi, our special prized taonga, whether they are people, snippets of history, events coming up, whatever they are, in whichever form. I want to get them into this room as this program develops so that they can connect to their people, to our people. And so that's what we'll be doing going forward. Today, of course, being program number 1, it's really all about connection and you connecting into who I am and what I'm all about. So today's just an introduction to the program itself, how it's going to be running, and to me. So I'm going to move on into our first waiata o te ata nei. Ko te waiata, ko Wairarapa tēnei. Ko Wairarapa moana tēnei te rōpū e waiata ana. He mihi maioha tēnei ki te rōpū o Rangiura. You can find this song on Spotify and YouTube by our lovely Wairarapa moana whānau. Ko Wairarapa tēnei. Feel free to sing along. Oh, that almost got me off my seat. Absolutely love that song. So I grew up here. Ko whakaoriori te kāinga, ko te whiti te tūranga waiwai, ko te oreore, ko huru nui orangi, ko pāpāwai, ngā marae. And it's really special for me to have the opportunity, of course, to share some of our local waiata with all of you. Listening in. Nō reira, tēnā nau mai hoki mai. Ko tēnei te paraire, te tekau mātahi o hune, rua mano rua tekau mātahi. One thing that will feature every single week for our program of Kahurangi is, of course, setting the scene. So we've just done that in one way. We could say in a ao Māori way, if you like. And setting the scene, it does include karakia for me. For me personally, it's just about being mindful and present in the moment and bringing my headspace as well as my wairua into my physical environment. So that's the studio here, and we've done that beautifully with our te whiti karakia. The other way that I'm going to do that, ko te rā me te marama, so our maramataka and our hōtaka. And I do want to acknowledge that there is language in te reo Māori for our date, which I've just alluded to. Paraire, Friday, transliteration, of course our date, te tekau mātahi, and hune, the transliteration for June. Rua mano rua tekau mātahi is our year. Now, I will follow the date in te reo Māori, following our Gregorian and solar system time, with maramataka time, so that we can all have an opportunity to share in the beauty that our ancestors have left us, which is called maramataka, our lunar calendar. I do have something to read in a second, but I am just going to set the scene by talking about which lunar phase we're in and which month of the Māori lunar calendar we're into, and provide some resources and references to share with you all that I've found really handy in my journey through maramataka and this revitalisation of the practice of our time systems, of our indigenous time systems. Nō reira, ko te marama o inanahi, ko whiro. Ko te marama, ko pipiri. Whiro, like I said earlier, is the new moon. And whiro symbolizes the beginning of a new month. When whiro rises in the sky, a different star constellation or star cluster or significant star will also rise with it. And that symbolizes the new lunar month. We are currently in Pipiri, and for Māori and other indigenous peoples around the world, Pipiri was the very first month of a new season. Pipiri because we are, of course, in the coldest time of the year. Our ancestors were hunkering down, probably not doing a lot in terms of physical activity, but doing lots in terms of connecting, speaking, discussing, and planning. So I like to think of it as the hibernation period of Māori, and a lot of our animal kingdom do it to this day. They're very interconnected and very aware of what's happening in the environment. It is not the right season to be going out and foraging, collecting, and diving and fishing for food. However, we have stored enough food to get through this next period, and that's what pipiri means. We are now sticking together. Ko te pipiri tēnā, ko tātou kia tātou. So each and every one of us are trying to, hunker down and be close to each other physically for warmth. Of course, in a modern context, it's slightly different, and we have been influenced by our Western calendar system. So in terms of how do we start to connect in with maramataka, well, there are a number of resources out there at the moment, and I do have a couple in the studio with me today. This here, if you are on our website or do come into the website eventually to have a look, is a dial which is available at All Right, that's ALL Right, .org.nz/maramataka. You can buy these, and what's lovely about it is there are the numbers of the dates in the middle, and the dates I'm talking about are the dates that we all recognise, of course, the 1st through to the 30th or 31st. Now, what you do is you figure out which date of our calendar system that we all know well in our Western world, that our new moon is going to rise, and most calendars will tell you when the new moon is going to rise. This month it was the 10th, so yesterday, 10th, and I moved the 10th to new moon, whiro. There is both the image of what the new moon looks like. I mean, the best way to know when the new moon is to see it in the sky. But if you're colonized enough like I am, we're going to look at paper, and that's okay too. You've got the word whiro there for reference. And then you can figure out where we're in terms of the maramataka on the outside ring. We are currently in Tirea. Tirea is a lunar phase particular to the beginning of the month. So I'm just going to read that and give you an idea of what this resource provides for us on the back. Tirea, a low energy lunar phase. Make time for loved ones, go out to a movie, do something special, or enjoy downtime, time to reflect and recharge. And this is a really good time for, again, wānanga. Not really good for active activities. The other resource that I've brought in here, and people who know me well know that I am a huge fan of these ladies and this brand. Disclaimer, I do not work for Tuhi, and I am not affiliated with them by whānau whakapapa. However, I am going to advertise them because I just think they're a wonderful product. So Tuhi, Tuhi, meaning to write or writing, and they have this incredible stationery brand. This particular one that I'm holding up again to the camera for those of you who have the visual reference is the Tuhi Marekura range, and this here is a journal range if you're into reflecting, because what maramataka really is a system in which we can be mindful and present in our environment, in our immediate environment. So of course it's really particular and unique to where we are. Every territory is different, every region is different. And this is how we observe what's going on in our environment, including the energies and how they're affecting us as individuals or whānau. And you can write them down in this beautiful book, Tuhi Marekura. The other part of their stationery range are, of course, journals, but more than that, our calendar diaries. So this calendar diary that I'm holding up is one of many. There are lots of different designs. This one in particular is in Te Reo Māori. But there are reorua, and what's really cool about it is it has both time systems that we know, the solar calendar that we are all really aware of and, make part of our everyday life. But of course, included in that are our maramataka, information, images, visuals, references, etc. So using the same method, I've figured out that we're in June, and in June on the 10th, Whiro rises. So I go to Whiro, and I know that I'm now in the 11th. Te Rea is in here, and I'm just going to read the exact same information, but using Tuhi's, I suppose, reading in Te Reo Māori. Nō reira, mo te Te Rea o Pipiri, me auaha. He wā taurite, ka taurite hoki ngā putanga. He orite ki te wā o Whiro, he wā mo te arotake, te whai whakaaro, te wānanga i ngā koranga hou. Te whakatau whāinga me te whakamahere mo te marama e heke mai nei. Ka puhia te atāhua o te marama awatea me ngā moana. Yeah, so it's telling us to get out into the dawn, into the sunrise. You're all welcome to do that. I'm not a morning person myself, but if you do want to do that, tukua. So I do want to move to another waiata now, and excuse me while I flap around with my hands. This is not actually in my Spotify playlist that I brought in, but it is one of my most favourite matariki songs, and it's by a lovely wahine Māori named Rahera Davies, who sings about matariki and her 8 children. There are 9 stars in matariki. Before I press play, however, I am just going to read an excerpt from the Poereo books that Rangitāne, Tū Mai Rā Trust, released a couple of years ago for our kaumātua. I taua wā tonu ko Yvette Grace, te rangatira o Tū Mai Rā Trust. I runga i te whakaaro e nui rawa ngā pakeke, ngā kaumātua Māori i konei Rangitāne, me te kōrereo. So Yvette Grace, at the time, the General Manager of Rangitāne Tū Mai Rā Trust, recognised that there are a number of our elderly kaumātua in the community who affiliate to Rangitāne but do not have te reo Māori. And so she, with a number of people, created and developed a course in te reo Māori specifically tailored to their learning needs. And it was a way for them to connect in with their whenua and whakapapa and to learn te reo Māori in the comfort of their homes with some beautiful kaiawhina. Sunny Brown, Ngaiwa, Marshall, a number of people who are young Māori speakers who could go along and help them and facilitate their own learning. I was privileged to have been asked to write this curriculum, and this excerpt is a mix of our own understandings of matariki and maramataka from Rangitāne with the help of Joe Pōtangaroa and Mike Kawana, and of course information from our online Māori encyclopedia Te Ara. Here we go. As we move towards the rising of matariki and the matariki constellation, also known to the Western world as Pleiades, we consider the Māori worldview of the seasons and time. Traditionally, each star was carefully observed and analysed to understand its effect on the landscapes and seascapes of the environment, and how that would subsequently affect what activities were carried out, how and when. Waiti was looked to for fresh water, Waitā for salt water, Waipunaarangi for water from the sky or rain, Tupuanuku for food from the land and what we grow or grew, Tupuarangi for food from the sky, birds, seed distribution and berries, Ururangi for the winds and storms, Matariki for beauty, light, weather patterns and well-being of man and woman. Pōhutu kawa to remember those who have passed, and hiwa i te rangi to look to the future for resolutions and aspirations, the planning of the new season. These days, the first sighting of matariki usually happens at dawn on the coldest day of the year during the tangaroa phases of the moon. This is sometime between late May and early July. Side note here, this year we're expecting the tangaroa phases and the clarity of matariki's presentation to the naked eye between the 2nd and the 5th of July. So we've got a little while yet to learn a bit more about our matariki and maramataka. I will continue reading now. Māori use the first sighting of matariki as an indication that a new year has begun, and at this time, we, all of us, gather together to reflect on the year that has passed and those people and lives that we've lost, and to look forward to the new year ahead. This is where the name for the matariki period comes from. Pipiri, of course, meaning to keep close together. One other important star to note is Puanga, regal in Orion. Some believe that it is the rising of Puanga, which signifies the start of the new year. This is usually because Māori in certain areas can see Puanga more prominently than matariki. But it is important that we note that both matariki and Puanga will rise at the same time, and that there are regional differences and interpretations of why Puanga might be more important than matariki and vice versa, and we acknowledge all of those time systems. Te maramataka Māori. Many indigenous cultures around the world have their own version of the maramataka, similar to Māori, which aligns with the phases of the moon, nights and dates, in relation to the rising and setting of the sun, seasons, and the rising and setting of stars, months, rather than the common Gregorian Western calendar, which is a solar system only. The maramataka has no defined months, but rather periods o ngā wā o te tau. Traditionally, you move through seasons according to the tohu, the symbols, and tohu move and change all the time. Our tupuna developed the maramataka based on their close relationships and understanding of our taiao, natural environment. It connects the whenua, land, rangi, sky, and moana sea. By closely observing the environment, our tupuna were able to identify days each month that were better suited for particular activities and to help predict the season ahead. Maramataka can tell us the best days for planting, fishing, and harvesting, while also telling us high and low energy days, the effect those days can have on people's moods, and how you should best spend your day. There's, like I said earlier, lots and lots of references and resources where we can get more information. One thing to note here, because of Kahurangi, is we are lacking in some of the information here locally. There certainly are experts in our community, and there certainly are resources and references, but we haven't quite put all the jigsaw puzzles together. And I'm really happy to say that there is a bit of a movement happening right now, and we are going to try and reconnect in with our own local maramataka. So watch this space. Here is our waiata, he waiata matariki no Rahera Davies.
Te
Kia ora anō tātou katoa. Isn't that a stunning song? Absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. No reira, nau mai hoki mai, kua ātahaere tātou I te ata nei. Me taku tino hia kia āta māramau I ngā mea nei. Tapu katoa e nei, he tapu hou me ki, e nei mea ki mua I tōku nei mata. So welcome on back in. And I've just said in te reo that I'm really aware that the different bits and pieces that go towards creating this program are all really new to me. So I want to thank you all, particularly our radio audience, for your patience. We are very quickly heading into the end of the show, and I feel like we've just kind of begun, but today was all about getting to know me. So I have had that chance to mihi atu kia koutou, to introduce myself, and as we go through each week you will learn a little bit more about who I am. I do want to slowly start to wrap up now, and I'm going to do it with another karakia and a couple of other waiata. This next karakia is not to wind down, but is really just to introduce you to another beautiful aspect of Te Ao Māori, and it's our birthing practice. I don't have time today to go into that, but our traditional birthing practices and parenting practices in Te Ao Māori is something I'm particularly passionate about, being a mama myself to two beautiful darlings. And so that's certainly some knowledge that I'm going to be bringing into the show. But I do want to use this opportunity just to highlight that it's there, that there is something that exists. And I'm going to do it by chanting or reenacting, if you like, tau parapara, or another karakia that often happens at birth or the birth of a child. This one here is about movement from te kore into te pō into te ao marama. Te kore, te pō are two descriptions, if you like, two ways of describing the very beginning of time and our creation story. Within that creation story, of course, we have two primal beings, Ranginui and Papatuanuku, our Sky Father and Earth Mother, and their children, ngā atua Māori, our elements or gods, if you like. Now, in that story, there's an environment called io. And io is described, like I said, as te kore, the nothingness or the void, te pō, the darkness. And we believe that that same environment exists in the womb. So that environment of kind of immense, intense darkness, or everything, is in the womb. And that a child moving through to come out into the world is really the reenactment of the separation of Ranginui and Papatuanuku, the idea from darkness into light, from the unknown into the known. So we truly believe that our babies come out with their full potential, the most wise of us all, the most tapu, the most sacred, and with their mana, intricately innate and connected to the way they express themselves, communicate. And it is our job, or jobs as adults and as the wider whānau, to allow them to flourish as they need to. This kind of knowledge was handed down to me through many generations, through my father, Hone Hurihanganui. Some of you know him well in this community. He was whāngai tuhia. It is my mother who has the whakapapa of this whenua that I call home, and it's Dad who came here in the 80s and 90s and kind of made a name for himself, if you like, sharing his skills and experiences as a native te reo speaker and educator, developing things like the kohanga reo and kura kaupapa Māori and kura rumaki with beautiful people like Mike Hollings, and there are a number of other rangatira. Dad was a very young 19-year-old tutor at Wairarapa Polytech during those times, and he ran the Te Reo Māori unit. Some of his students included the likes of Mike Kawana, and a few of the whānau members, I'm sure, who will be tuning into this eventually. So ko te mihi nui tēnei kia koutou, oku pakeke, oku kaumātua, oku whanaunga, matua whaia katoa, tēnā koutou Tēnā rā koutou katoa. So a big shout out to all of you who've come through that journey of reclaiming and revitalising our reo. And Dad, I just wanted to honour, because I have spoken a lot about my te whiti kahungunu rangitāne roots. Dad brings me the te arawa side, but he also was key in passing on lots of our te ao Māori knowledge. And I wanted to kind of wrap up with a couple of songs. The first song that I'm going to play now is actually one of Dad's, and it's from the Te Aute College album. Dad was a teacher there when we moved from Wairarapa to Hawke's Bay, north of here. And it was on their college album because he was tutoring there at the time. He was the head of Māori, and they asked if anyone else wanted to chuck a couple of singles on the album. Dad, of course, put his hand up, yeah, sure. And he chose a couple of his oriori. And oriori, of course, is the name of our town, whakaoriori, to sing a lullaby, to give a lullaby. This one here was my oriori, and I'll recite the karake, and as soon as the karake is finished, press play and you can hear it. But it really is that song that you would sing to your baby coming out into te ao marama, into the big wide world. So here we go. Ko te kore. Te kore te whiwhia, te kore te rawea. Te kore iai, te kore te wiwia. Nā te kore te pō. Te pō nui, te pō roa. Te pō uriuri, te pō kerekere, te pō tiwhatiwha, te pō te kitea, te pō tangotango, te pō whawha, te pō namunamu ki tai ao, te pō tahuri atu, te pō tahuri mai ki tai ao, ka puta ki te whai ao, ki te ao marama, tihei, mauri ora.
Nau mai rā e tāku tau puta mai ki tai ao nei au e mai ue a mai Takahia ki tō te pai Ko te maunga kuau nei Ki mihia rā e te tau Ko ngā ke te tōru nei Au e mai Ue a mai O te tua uri e Ko te tua te a e Te aro nui e Au e mai Ue a mai Nau mai rā e tāku tau Puta mai ki tai ao nei Au e mai Ue a mai Takahia ki tō te pai Ko te maunga kuau nei Ki mihia rā e te tau Ko ngā ke te tōru nei Au e mai Ue e a mai.
Tēnā anō tātou katoa, ko Te Ataahia Eraina Hurihanganui tēnei. Ko te waiata ko nau mai rā e taku tau, nā hone Hurihanganui tōku pāpā I tito I te tau 1920 I te tekau mawha o hune. So my birthday is coming up. That song was written on the 14th of June 1990, and Ori Ori, a lullaby for me by my father, who I am acknowledging today. So that wraps us up for program number 1, and I'm stoked to have gotten through it and to have survived. Thank you all for listening in and for watching. If you're seeing the recording of this on our website, Arrow FM, of course. I do want to again acknowledge Michael and the team for being so patient with me. I'm a very busy person, but it's really nice and relaxing actually to be in this environment, sharing things with everyone. I want to also just note a couple of things. Next week we will continue getting to know one another, and I will be presenting a little bit more about myself and my connections to Rangitane and Kahungunu with a very similar setup to this week's session. So program 2 will be a follow-on, if you like, of program 1, and it will include some more details for Maramataka and Matariki as we near our Tangaroa Luna phases and want to celebrate. I do want to acknowledge Hemi Kelly, a colleague from Auckland University who's an official translator of Te Reo Māori, who's come out on his social media pages with a beautiful phrase for us to learn and understand for Matariki. So it would be like saying, Merry Christmas at Christmas time, Happy Birthday for birthdays. At Matariki time, Mana wa tia Matariki. Mana wa tia Matariki. It's a greeting that we can all use to greet each other during this month of Pipiri until our Matariki rises in the Tangaroa Luna phases at the beginning of July. Mana wa tia Matariki. If you do want to have access to any of the references, kōrero karakia waiata that I will be sharing with you all, and you've obviously got the downloads and the videos to connect to through Arrow FM on the website. I will also be putting them onto my Facebook page, Reorua Limited, so you can find me at the @ Reorua1, or Googling, of course, Reorua through my website. There will be a link to my Facebook page. I will put all content there for future use. And I just wanted to finish now. We started off with a beautiful waiata from Ngāti Kahungunu ko Wairarapa tēnei. I'm going to finish with a waiata that Uncle Mike Kawana was part of putting together, called Tūmaira, an acknowledgement of Rangitane to finish. But before we go there, yesterday I was at a lovely pōwhiri for my uncle Rob Ropata Rutene. He is now an inspector for the police, and there was a beautiful gathering of many different iwi passing him back to his roots, if you like, to his Wellington Wairarapa colleagues in his promotion. You will see a little bit of a write-up on Uncle Rob Rutene in the paper today in our Wairarapa Times Age, and I've just noticed a bit of an error. So this is a bit cheeky of me to be sending it out to everyone. There was an error in there stating that many of the people present and in our whai kōrero mentioned their connections to each other because of their shared schooling history at Hato Paora, and I just wanted to let everyone know that it was actually Te Aute College that my uncle and others present attended, not Hato Paora. I'm sure someone will write into them and just let them know to correct it for others to hear, but you heard it from me. It was Te Aute College, so another nice connection and with some of the waiata we played today. I'm going to go now. We've closed it off spiritually, and here we are with a really lovely waiata called Tūmaira, again being presented and performed by Wairarapa Moana Rangiura Kapahaka and group. I hope you enjoy it.
Mara
Tēnā anō koutou katoa, a mauri ora ki a tātou te whānau, manawa tia matariki.